Hi, I'm Hazel. It's Saturday today, which makes it time to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I have been up to, and answer some of your questions. This week we got an official season end date for Shadowlands Season 4 finally. It's going to be all over on October the 24th. They still have not yet confirmed officially the pre-patch date, which is a little bit odd, although it is highly likely to be either the day following season end on October the 25th, or like maybe 1 week after that if they really feel like they have to push it. My concern is that maybe the reason they haven't confirmed a date yet is because they're worried that they might have to push it back a week. I really can't see them pushing it back any more than 2 weeks after that, because then you're kind of like encroaching on the 1 month before Dragonflight launch territory. But yeah, most likely the 25th, possible outside chance of a week after that, but we don't know for sure. As far as Season 4 ending, that is your deadline for the top-rated Mythic Plus and PvP titles. So if you're going for like Rank 1 titles or the Shrouded Hero for the Mythic Plus season, you have until October 24th to work on those. However, if you're just worried about like your Keystone Master mounted stuff, the things to do while you're dead blog post, the sort of Shadowlands Deadlines official blog post that WoW put out, was updated a couple of days ago on October the 12th. What they did is they moved the Mythic Plus rewards from season end to Dragonflight launch, which indicates that you should be able to continue working on your Keystone Master mount and dungeon portals all the way up to Dragonflight launch on the 28th. It was a pretty short season, so this seems like a nice kind of cookie for them to throw to people that really need a little extra time. Speaking of pre-patch, we have just very recently seen some testing of the pre-patch event on PTR servers. I went and looked around, and it's pretty wonky so far. The basic gist of it is that there are elemental invasions across the regular zones, you know, Ungro, Badlands, Tirisfal, all over the place, basically. And you go there, there's some enemies that mean nothing, and then after some amount of time, an event spawns where you're going to actually get drops off of enemies, like currency drops, and then you can kill a boss for more of those currency drops. Currently, everything dies kind of fast, and when you're fighting the boss, there is some insane fog that makes you totally unable to see, which is funny. So I think they're probably going to need to do some work on the event, because as it stands, it's a lot of waiting around and not a lot of doing anything or making any progress. But you will be able to use that currency to buy Catchup gear. It's item level 252 Catchup gear. I think that item level is fine for beginning of expansion Catchup gear. It's valuable for anybody that sat out Zereth Mortis. And there are some unique Mog appearances from that, but it's nothing to really write home about. I think a lot of people might sit it out if they don't need the gear. And then also a Critter Vacuum toy for 100 of these Primal Essences. Quite frankly, the whole event was kind of a mess in testing. I'm hoping that they do some big work on it so people can farm those things more predictably without having to like wait around for the thing to start. And like kind of comfortably get their catch-up gear for the patch. There's also supposedly a quest line, but we have not seen any of that just yet. Other news this week, tier set bonuses have been announced to be going away, which is something we expected. I'm talking about the current Sepulchre tier set bonuses that we're using for the current Shadowlands raids. They always get tuned to Legacy eventually, but it is going to be happening with the Dragonflight Pre-Patch. And that is earlier than normal, and because of that, they put out a blue post kind of explaining that, yes, it's unusual for them to disable them this soon, but because of all the class changes and new talents, it's kind of a special circumstance, and that they will be retuning our existing content with the pre-patch to kind of turn it down, so they can keep the difficulty relatively the same even without all of our set bonuses. That's all fine and good. I think we all kind of expected that. There's a lot of those tier set bonuses have made it into the talents, and things could get kind of broken if you had them twice. I will say that in experience, the tuning thing so the difficulty is the same sounds great on paper, but in practice turns out to be mostly fine, but every now and then you find an enemy that is just like a brick wall that starts decimating people. Honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Pre-patches are chaos, and that kind of tuning is probably going to be a little bit slapdash, but I feel like we're going to be in Dragonflight before you know it, so I'm not expecting this to, you know, ruin my life for very long. This week in Mythic Plus testing, we got our first look at the Thundering Affix, and then we heard about some changes to it. So the first version of Thundering Affix looked like this. It's basically a lot of stuff to dodge. It was quite a bit of stuff to dodge, and I found myself pretty bad at dodging it. And then the new version is going to involve making use of an extra 15% damage and healing buff that you need to remove right before it expires, because you're doing big stuff while you have the buff. But if you just let it fall off naturally, you're going to be stunned for a long, long time. So you need to find a player of the opposite mark and touch them to remove the buff right before it expires. We'll see that in practice the next time they open up Mythic Plus testing, which I believe is this weekend as you're watching this. That should be alive and well, so I'll get back to you next week on how that feels, but I'm reserving judgment until I've had a chance to play it, because initially it sounds like a lot. I'm hopeful that that plays well and feels good for people, and that also the healer mana game in Dragonflight Mythic Plus feels good without all of those extra mana gimmies that we've been getting from our seasonal affixes up to this point. I guess not up to this point, but like at least throughout Shadowlands. Other news this week, the Warcraft Twitter has shared that in the Dragonflight Pre-Patch and moving forward, Horde and Alliance will be able to share mob tags. If you have ever been like running up to a mob to go hit it, and then an opposite faction member gets there first and it turns gray to you, that's what faction tagging is, and we're doing away with it. You will be able to have Horde and Alliance players both working on the same mobs out in the world and sharing credit for them, as long as nobody's in a group of 5 people or more. The 5-man player party tagging is still intact, and that's to limit how much people can exploit world farming. This is a pretty small change that is a huge quality of life benefit, and I think it's going to be very, very nice when we are all out and leveling in Dragonflight doing the same quests and fighting the same mobs if you don't have, half of them get turned gray because somebody of the other faction got there first. I do not believe it applies in War Mode, but if you're in War Mode and somebody tries to steal your mob, you can just kill them and then take it for yourself, so there's always that. And then in my life this week, I have started to work on my very, very late season Vicious mount. I've decided that I do want the Vicious Warstalker after all, so I've been spending every single stream queuing up 3s and just trying to slam that progress bar out. I'm currently up to like 60-ish%. Since they are going to let you keep cruising towards the other seasonal rewards all the way up until Dragonflight, I'm actually not sure whether or not Vicious mounts would be included in that. They weren't really mentioned in that post. But I'm going to finish mine before the season ends, like just in case. Vicious mounts don't go away forever. They eventually end up on the saddle vendor, but it would be a lot easier just to crank it out now. And then questions for this week. World Peas wants to know, have or will 1k stacks be implemented for old expansion mats, or will they only apply to Dragonflight mats? Pack rats need to know. So I logged on to beta. I walked into a tailoring leatherworking shop. I purchased 1,000 coarse thread and then 1,000 bleach, and they stacked up to 1,000 in my bags. So seems magnificent and looks to be retroactive to the old materials. And then Jim wants to know, with the updated UI and other fun new stuff for Dragonflight, what add-ons do you think you won't need anymore? So I think I am tossing Bartender and Shadowed Unit Frames for sure. I already tossed my cast bar add-on, actually. I used to use Gnosis, and I decided to try out default cast bars for a bit to see how they made me feel. I feel fine, so I think I'm going to continue using default cast bar unless it starts to bug me. I think that's basically it, though. All the rest of my add-ons, except for nameplates, which aren't getting updated just yet, deal with like other parts of my interface or other quality of life areas, so I think those are the big ones. I wasn't using a bag add-on, I wasn't using a mouse over casting add-on, I had macros for that. I wasn't using a raid frame add-on or anything, so nothing to delete there because I had default UI already. And then Seal wants to know, what dessert did you make and how did it turn out? So I did an apple crumble, or crisp, depending on how pedantic you might feel about the nomenclature, I suppose. It had oats in the topping. It was very good. It was like a baked apple dessert with like some oats and stuff on top. It was yummy. It was actually very, very easy to make. I think I spent most of the time peeling apples, and that didn't take very long. And then I got to give the apple peelings to my Warren bin for their Thanksgiving dinner. I should make that more often. It's delicious and not very hard. And that's been the week. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions for a news video, please pop it in the comments. Include the word question to help me find it. Appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.